Imagine waking up to the sound of walls crumbling around you, knowing that the next moment could change your life forever. Picture families carrying their children through rubble, not searching for comfort, but for survival. This isn't a distant story. It's happening right now, and every second reveals a truth the world cannot look away from. What you're about to hear will challenge you, move you, and force you to see beyond the headlines. Stay with me until the very end, because the weight of this reality deserves more than a glance. It demands your full attention. When you hear that Israel is preparing to reduce or even halt humanitarian aid to northern Gaza, including Gaza City, it's more than just a political or military maneuver. It's a move that directly strikes at the survival of families who are already living in unimaginable conditions. For months, residents in the north have been enduring constant bombardment, crumbling infrastructure, and near total isolation. Humanitarian convoys that once brought medicine, food, and clean water have already been struggling to make their way through. Now, the very lifelines that keep people alive are being cut back, with the justification that the area has been declared a combat zone. But think about what that really means. Declaring a place unlivable does not make the people disappear. It leaves them stranded, caught between bombardment and starvation, with nowhere to go and no way to meet even the most basic human needs. Aid has always been a fragile thread in this crisis. It's been sporadic, under constant negotiation, and often too little compared to the sheer scale of human suffering. The suspension of airdrops and reduction in convoys are not just bureaucratic decisions. They are blows to people who have been surviving on crumbs. Parents in Gaza City are already struggling to feed their children a single meal a day. Hospitals, stripped of medicine and electricity, are turning into places where people go not for healing, but to wait for the inevitable. When aid is deliberately scaled back, it signals a shift from hardship to catastrophe. Israel's reasoning is to pressure residents to flee toward the south, but here's the harsh reality: many cannot move. Those who are sick, elderly, or injured are trapped. Families with infants have no safe passage, no means of travel, and no guarantee of safety even if they did manage to leave. Cutting aid does not simply encourage relocation. It weaponizes hunger and scarcity against the most vulnerable. And for those who do attempt to flee, the South is not prepared to absorb them. Resources there are already stretched to the breaking point. Shelters are overflowing, water supplies are collapsing, and food insecurity is just as dire. What looks like a strategy on paper turns into an impossible choice for civilians: stay and risk death by bombing, or leave and risk death by deprivation. The ripple effect of such a decision is enormous. Every delivery of flour that doesn't come through, every pallet of water bottles withheld, every truck of medicine turned back, directly translates into lives lost, and beyond the numbers, it deepens a psychological wound, a sense that survival itself is being held hostage. People are left not only to grieve those they lose to violence, but also to wrestle with the slow, crushing reality of starvation and untreated illness. The world is watching, but the people inside Gaza City are living this in real time. They are not debating policy. They are rationing their last scraps of food, carrying their children through rubble in search of water, and praying that the next strike doesn't fall on them. That is the weight of this decision, and that is why reducing aid to northern Gaza doesn't just escalate the conflict. It escalates human suffering in ways that words can barely contain. This is not just a military strategy, it's a humanitarian breaking point. When the president of the International Committee of the Red Cross warns that a mass evacuation of Gaza City is unsafe and nearly impossible, it forces us to confront the reality behind the headlines. It's easy to imagine an evacuation as a neat solution, that people gathering their belongings and walking out in some orderly line towards safety. But that picture has nothing to do with what is actually happening on the ground. The truth is far harsher. For thousands, leaving simply isn't an option. Too many are gravely ill, too many are wounded, and too many are children who cannot endure a journey under fire with no guarantee of shelter on the other side. Think about what evacuation means in this context. It isn't a bus ride to safety. It's walking through rubble and bombed-out streets with no food, no water, and no clear path. It's carrying your elderly parent on your back because there are no wheelchairs or ambulances left. It's dragging your injured child through checkpoints and airstrikes, praying they survive the journey long enough to make it to a place that may not even be equipped to help them. To call this evacuation is to gloss over the sheer brutality of the reality people are being asked to endure. And even if people do somehow make it out of Gaza City, what are they walking into? The southern areas of Gaza are already overwhelmed. Families are packed into overcrowded shelters where sanitation has collapsed. Drinking water is scarce, food is rationed, and disease spreads faster than aid can arrive. Every new wave of displaced people adds unbearable strain on systems that have already buckled under the weight of months of conflict. For those who arrive, the promise of safety often turns out to be an illusion. They may escape the immediate threat of bombardment only to face starvation, untreated illnesses, and the misery of living without dignity. When humanitarian leaders say evacuation is unfeasible, they are not exaggerating. They are stating the plain truth. There is no infrastructure, no safe passage, and no resources to support such a movement of people. To order civilians to leave in these circumstances is not an act of protection. It is pushing them into another form of danger. It's a cruel paradox. Staying is deadly, but leaving may be just as deadly. The very idea of choice disappears because both options carry a heavy cost. This is the cruel bind in which ordinary families find themselves trapped. They are not weighing comfort against discomfort. They are weighing death against another kind of death. The humanitarian cost of this impossible choice is staggering, and the psychological toll is just as devastating. Parents are left to wonder whether their decision to stay will see their children buried under rubble, or their decision to leave will see them wasting away in overcrowded shelters without food or medicine. This is why evacuation cannot be spoken of as if it were a solution, because in Gaza today, evacuation itself has become another form of suffering. When the bombardment of Gaza City intensifies, the human cost becomes impossible to ignore. Every strike is not just a blast on a map, it is a home collapsing, a street turned into ash, a family torn apart in an instant. Casualty numbers are often reported as statistics, but behind every single one is a name, a face, a life that was cut short. Dozens have been killed in just the most recent wave of attacks, many of them civilians who had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Hospitals, already overwhelmed and stripped of supplies, are filling with the wounded faster than doctors can treat them. Stretchers line hallways, blood stains the floors, and the cries of those searching for loved ones echo through what remains of the city. The scale of displacement is staggering. Families who had already moved multiple times in search of safety are once again on the move, carrying plastic bags, blankets, and whatever little they can salvage. Some leave behind the ruins of their homes, knowing they may never return. Others walk through the streets with no destination, because the truth is, there is no safe destination. The South is bursting at the seams, and the North is under relentless attack. Each step away from their homes feels like walking deeper into uncertainty, into a future where nothing is secure and survival itself is constantly in question. Children, in particular, are bearing the brunt of this relentless offensive. They have been pulled out from under rubble, rushed into overcrowded hospitals, and left traumatized by the sounds of explosions that have become part of their daily lives. Entire generations are being scarred not only by physical injuries, but also by the psychological weight of growing up in an environment where war is all they know. For many, the concept of normal childhood, school, play, safety has become a distant memory, replaced by the instinct to duck at the sound of planes or to run when the ground shakes beneath them. Amid this chaos, survivors often describe a haunting sense of abandonment. They are living through a reality where the world debates their fate from afar, while they bury their dead with their bare hands and rebuild makeshift shelters from the ruins of their neighborhoods. They know that every time a building is struck, it is not just concrete that falls, it is the fragile hope that life might return to some kind of stability. Yet, even in the midst of devastation, there is resilience. People continue to search for loved ones, to share what little food they have, to comfort children through the night, because that is the only power left to them in a situation that strips away everything else. This is what intensified offensives really mean, not just military advances or tactical maneuvers, but the steady erasure of civilian life, the crushing of families, and the relentless expansion of grief that never seems to end.